Yeah, I kind of wish I actually relaxed more over break. It's okay. At least there was no class.
Oh, hey Patrick, have you been to places on spring break?
Have I been to places?
Yeah, any places.
Not really.
Um, oh yeah,
I,
if you're like bored throughout this month or next month, uh, I've been to Universal Studios on spring break to watch a movie, but they said
mm,
it's going to be fully open on April 16th.
mm, cool. Yeah,
So if you're
another. Hmm,
Yeah, so if you're like really bored, it's gonna be open on that day.
hmm,
It's gonna be fully reopened.
that's cool. Yeah, I know there's like Angel Stadium. They're starting to let people come in, and the Ducks
Yeah.
too soon. Anyways, but yeah, on break I honestly did a lot of work, so it wasn't that great. But at least there was no class. Yeah. Okay, so oh yeah, first I quickly want to mention tomorrow I'm getting my second dose, so depending on how I feel on Wednesday, we may or may not have class. But you should plan for right now that we're gonna have class this Wednesday, but if I feel like terrible in the morning, then I'm gonna send an email saying that there's no class.
Second dose.
Yeah, for the vaccine.
You're okay. You're taking a vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Nice, Ethan. First dose I was okay. My arm was just sore.
Wait, where did you guys get the vaccine? I want to sign up.
I got Moderna. I was able to get it through school since I'm part of the
Yeah, but I mean
faculty.
like the students, because you're a government agent technically, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. You gotta ask other students or just other people. I think a lot of people that I know, they're getting the vaccine now too.
I heard in the news that by some day this month, like April, I think people above age 16 and above can get the vaccine because my mom already got mine, got
Mm-hmm.
hers.
Yeah, that's on
Nice.
like April 16th or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I heard from my brother. He works at a hospital. He told me at his hospital, anyone could just walk in and get it right now.
Hmm.
Really.
Yeah, like I know a lot of my friends, they're getting it, and basically they just said that they showed up and asked if there was any extras. So I don't know. You could try that.
I feel like America's like luckiest in terms of vaccine because like other places they're in shortage right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so anyways, yeah, I might feel sick after the second shot because everyone else in my family has. So if I feel too bad, then I'm going to cancel it the morning of. But for now, plan that we're going to have class still on a Wednesday. So, anyways, today we're going to be doing some more workshops really this whole week because I know um, I think there's been some, I don't know, I don't want to say like issues, but I know the stuff we've covered last week, it's a lot to take in at once. So if we have more workshops, that's going to help out. And I'll make some videos as well for some more examples. And then I'll also give you guys a homework today too. So for the homework, basically, I'm going to give you like a picture of a graph. And I'll also give you the data sheet, the corresponding data sheet. And basically, I'm going to tell you guys to make the graph on your own. So it's going to be basically up to you to do everything completely on your own without any instruction. And that way, it's kind of like the project where, on the project, I gave you at least 2 graphs for reference, and it's up to you to actually make those graphs on your own. Alright, so I added some new spreadsheets on Canvas just before class. So basically go to Files and go to Data. So click on Files, click on Data, and then I added this one called GME, and then I added batters.csv. So we're going to be doing basically we're going to do as much as we can today, and then we'll do some more on Wednesday. So there's a few of them. So the first one that we're going to do is this one. And basically all of these workshops, they're, using techniques that you need on the project. So this first one is going to focus on mostly the technique. Sorry, my mic, whatever, clipped. It's going to focus on the technique of using Movmean, which is the rolling average that we have to use for some of the deliverables on the project. So basically here you can see in red, this is day-to-day search interest for GME, GameStop. And then in blue is a 7-day rolling average. So basically it's getting the average kind of day by day, but it's getting that value on a 7-day average. So it's not a statistics class, but basically it helps to smooth out our curve. You probably saw this a lot for graphs for COVID-19 cases and deaths, because those varied quite a lot day by day. So a lot of places used a rolling average. Anyways, like a few of the graphs that we need for the project, you have to use this Movmean function. So we're going to learn how to use that today. It's pretty simple though. So this will be the first one. Here's the second one. Of course, it's baseball data because, pretty much all of them are baseball data. So we're going to get the hit profile for these different Angel players, and we're also doing a different kind of bar chart than usual, which is a stacked bar chart. So that'll be one more. And then, I'll also touch on the kind of two different methods during this workshop to show which method is more efficient. It's not going to be a huge point of concern for this class because this is an intro class, but later on when you continue to code, you might want to keep in mind the efficiency of your code. But again, this is an intro class, so I want to show you guys this so you can keep this in mind later on. And then the last one is this one, which we actually kind of started before, but I'm changing this a bit to, this is a bit of a different graph. So we didn't get through all of this before, the last week that we had for class, but we're going to start over from scratch on making this graph here. And yes, I did see the Angels walk off last night. That game was crazy. That whole series was crazy. Great baseball. Okay, so has everyone downloaded the new data? Because we're going to start off with this graph here, GME. So make sure you went to Canvas, went to Files, and then Data, and then GME. Yeah, too many errors for sure. Really for both teams in the whole series, but it kind of made it entertaining too. Oh yeah, also I'm going to be doing this, basically today I'm going to be using what you see here. So I'm actually using MATLAB. I know it looks weird. Basically I'm using MATLAB in a text editor. I think I talked about this on the very first day of class, but basically for what I'm going to show you today, it's going to be easier for me to use it in here just to do stuff faster. You'll see once we actually get started. So everyone have the datasheet gme.csv? You can either follow along with me, or again, you can just watch this and kind of look at this video later on when it's uploaded. Alright, so I'm going to get started then. And yeah, Otani looked great. Well, I mean, he walked a bit of people, but for his first real game back, I mean, last season he pitched, 2 games, and they were terrible right before he got injured. It was a good game for him. Especially that first pitch home run. It's great. Okay, so on the bottom right here, this is just my actual script, just to make sure that I'm gonna cover everything that I want to cover. Alright, so again, first thing that we're gonna do is make this graph here, and basically it's gonna focus on this technique of Movmean, which is to get a rolling average. We're gonna be using that for the project. Okay, so first thing that we have to do is import our data. Okay, so I'm gonna make a section here, and I'm gonna call it bookkeeping because we're gonna import our data here and do a few more other things. Okay, so first thing, we're going to import our data. And, remember for your project, you want to use a lot of comments throughout the code. So basically, I would recommend to have sections, kind of section by section for however you think is logical. And then within that section, you should have still comments throughout. Okay, so here we're going to import this data. I'll call our table T, standing for table. Again, make sure that your variables, they also... you want them to be short, but you also want them to make sense for yourself and whoever is going to look at your code at some point. So we're going to do read table and then gme.csv. Make sure that your spreadsheet is in the same folder as your script. You guys should know this by now, but just a reminder. And if I run this code right now, so you'll see over here, this is the command window on the right. So you should get a warning, that the same warning that I have here. And basically it says that the column headers from the file were modified to make them valid MATLAB identifiers before creating variable names. Who cares, whatever. Basically, it modified the variable names or the column names that we have in our spreadsheet to import this, okay. This warning gets really annoying, so we're going to kind of modify our line of code to get rid of this warning. But if we look at this in the workspace, okay, so if we open up our table that we just had, this is what it looks like right now. So in one column we have the day, and in the second column, it's called GME and then underscore. It should be United States, yeah. But again, I want to get rid of that warning that we had, so we're going to modify this line of code that we have here. Put this down. So we're going to use something called preserve variable names and then true. So basically, this is just telling MATLAB that we want to preserve whatever the variable name was called in that spreadsheet, and we're going to preserve it and import it that way. So I don't really know why sometimes some spreadsheets give us this warning and other spreadsheets don't. So basically, if you get this warning, you can just do what we're doing here, which is preserve variable names. Make sure your capitalization is the same here. It's really weird. And then we're going to set this to true. And now when I run this, there's not going to be any warning in the command window here. Guess I'll put this over here. No, I'll put it here. Okay. Okay, so now our spreadsheet looks like this. So it changed a little bit, but basically this is what the column name was called in the spreadsheet itself before it was imported. This is still kind of a weird column name, so we're going to change this. We're actually going to modify this ourselves now. So basically, when you import data and I don't know if it's in this project or if it's from last semester, but I think there might be one spreadsheet on your project where it might have like I think an underscore, and MATLAB doesn't like, or maybe it is a / actually, and MATLAB doesn't like the / when you kind of want to use array addressing. Basically, imagine that this column here, column 2, it said like GME and then / United States. MATLAB doesn't like that /, so you would need to modify this column name, do something that doesn't have that /. So you can modify these different variable names, they're called, by yourself, so you can change them into, whatever you want. So we're going to do that right now. So we're going to change variable names, make a comment there. And so I want to change the second column here to just say, I don't know, US. So I'm going to do T. So that's looking at our table T, and then we're going to access the variable names. So the variable names for our table they're stored under the properties for that table. So we use dot notation here. So we do t.properties. So that's going to get all of the properties for this table. And then we're going to specify the variable names. So dot variable names. And then in parentheses, I'm going to put 2 because I want to change the variable name for this second variable name here. Basically the second column. And then we're going to call this US. And I'm also putting this in quotes here because basically I want to make this a string. So if we run this now you see that our column name changed to US. Let's see if I do single quotes, I think that, no, okay, that doesn't work actually. So make sure that you make this a string. So remember, a string is when we have double quotes here. Alright, so everyone good so far? We're about to actually do the main part of this, which is using Movmean.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. We're first going to plot this normally, just so we can see the difference of a normal plot and then Movmean. So I'm going to make a section here called plot. And let's make our plot here. So we're going to use plot. And I want to have the days on the x-axis and then the values here on the y-axis. Oh yeah, I don't think I really mentioned what these values are. So these values that we see here, basically they're the relative search interest by day. So this is from Google, by the way, so from Google Trends. So basically on January 28th, you see a value of 100. So that's when EGME was the most popular for the search interest on Google. So if you see not a number, basically they didn't have, basically I think they said that it basically wasn't popular enough to even reach a value of 1, so they just put not a number. Okay, so we want to have the days on the x-axis, so we're going to do plot t.day, so we're going to get this entire column here. And then we'll do comma t.us, and then we're going to get all of that relative search interest there. Okay, question, is it like by thousands? No, so it's actually, basically they scaled it, so it's just this kind of relative search interest. So basically it's just on a scale of 0 to 100, so if it's something like 10, it was not, very popular that day. If it was 100, that's the max amount of popularity. So there's no units associated with this. It's just the kind of relative search interest or popularity for that day. So let's plot this and maybe it'll make a little more sense. Okay, so you see here basically in January, on January 15th, it was not popular at all to search this on Google, but once we went to January 28th, it was the most popular for searching EGME. So basically on January 28th, the search term EGME, it was the most popular at that time. So, yeah. So, okay, as you can see here, there's a lot of spikes, right? It spikes up, it spikes down, it spikes up. Day by day, it was pretty volatile, just like the stock. Anyway, so we're going to change this to use a rolling average. For this, would you need to do it for this example? Maybe not, but I just want to show you how to use this function Movmean. So again, once we use Movmean, that's going to be a rolling average. So it's going to basically smooth out these peaks and valleys into a more kind of steady, gradual chart. And again, that can help if this was like really jagged, just day by day, huge differences. That's a really hard plot to look at. So that's when you would really want to use Movmean, so you can basically take out that drastic variability, and you can see the general trend for something over time. So it was perfect for something like the cases per day for COVID-19. Alright, so I'm going to close this for now. And let's use Movmean.
Wait, so if you change the step size for Movmean or whatever, how many days it cancels out the or what it uses to know or to think what a big spike is based on the time, couldn't that affect the plot?
Yeah, it's going to affect the plot. We're not going to change the step size. It's going to be still day by day, but how it calculates that value, it gets this average from this select range that we have.
Okay.
It should make more sense once we do it, but let me know if you still have a question. Okay, so I'm going to make another section here, and I'll call this data processing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is specify what kind of Movmean that we want to use. So basically this will either be something like, again, I'm going to reference when you saw graphs for COVID-19 cases and deaths. You might have seen something like, a 3-day rolling average, or most likely a 7-day rolling average. So for now, I'm going to put mov equals 7, so that's our variable mov. And basically, we're going to say that I want to use a 7-day rolling average. And we're doing this to basically prevent hard coding once again. So later on, if I want to change the Movmean that we're using, or the rolling average that we're using, I can just change this one line of code and that's it. Okay, so there's what we want to use. And now let's actually use our function Movmean for our data here. So let's see, make a comment and we'll say apply, I'll say rolling average, apply rolling average to data. Okay, so we're applying it basically to this column here, this column called US, because I want to get, instead of these spikes where on the 24th to the 25th, or the 27th to the 28th, that was a pretty big difference here. We're basically going to smooth those huge variations out. So I'll say, I don't know, US underscore mov for Movmean. And we're going to use our function now. So the function that we're using is Movmean. And the syntax for this is basically the first argument is going to be what we want to apply this function on. So what's the data that we want to use? So for us, that's t.us, so this column here. And then the second argument that we put in is the rolling average that we want to use. So we specified that on this line here, which was a 7-day rolling average. So we'll put comma mov. I'm going to basically append a column here. So to append a column, or to make a new column in a table, you reference the table and then you just use dot notation once again. And then if I run this now, it appended this whole new column here. Alright, so you can see that it totally changed a lot of our data here. So let me move this over too. So, in the beginning, this is our original data here in column 2. And then once we applied Movmean, this is the kind of new data that we have here. So basically, again, this isn't a stats class, but it's still giving us data day by day. But how it calculates the value is it looks at, again, we used a 7-day rolling average. So it's looking at all 7 days centered around whatever day you're looking at, and it's getting that average. Okay, so you'll see this difference actually show up once we make our plot again. Okay, so question, can I just put a 7, or did I have to make it a variable first? No, I could have put a 7 instead, so I could have done 7 right here, and see nothing changed. But that, I would mark you down, a point or something for hard coding if this was the project. Because if I want to change the Movmean that we're using later on, I only have to change this line here, and it might not be in this example, but on your project you're going to have multiple lines of code where you reference this variable. So if you want to change the rolling average that you're using later on, you only have to change one line of code instead of multiple lines of code. Okay. Alright, so question, can I go over that again? Was that the explanation for Movmean? What it's like kind of doing in the background? Okay, yeah. So I'm not gonna claim that I'm like, I'm not good at stats. I never even took a stats class, believe it or not. But what Movmean is doing is it's getting the average, depending on whatever distribution we're looking at. So here we have a 7-day rolling average. So let's say we're on the 27th here. So we're looking at this column or this cell right here. If we apply Movmean, it's going to look at the 7 days that are around that. So I think it might go like 3 days up here, and basically we're going to get these 7 cells here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and from those 7 values it's going to calculate the average that we have from these numbers, and it's going to apply it on that day we were just looking at. And then it's going to shift down to the next day. It'll look at the 7 days that are surrounding that cell, calculate the average, go to the next day, like the 7 cells surrounding that day, calculate the average, and then you keep going like that. So we can actually even type in doc of Movmean, and this will give us the documentation for it. So if you want a better, basically, explanation than I have, you can look at this here. So it's pretty detailed. Okay, and then if we do something like, let's do Movmean of 1, that's going to be the exact same as this column here, because we're basically getting the average on a day-by-day basis. Well, the average of one number is just going to be that number, so you see it's going to be the exact same. Okay, so we're going to change this to 7 once again. I think on the project I have you using a Movmean of 7, or a rolling averages of 7 days. Okay, so now we have our 2 different columns here, and let's plot both of them at the same time, and then we can visualize the differences a bit better. Move this over here again. Okay, so the first one that we have here is just plotting day by day. I'll add on a comment here too that says day by day. And we want to have 2 curves. This was something that some of you forgot on quiz 4, which I guess I forgot to mention, but homework 3, homework 4, and quiz 4, all of those were graded over the break, so I'm not sure if I sent out an email for that. I know I said it on Discord, but all of those are graded, so if you want to look at your grades.
You put the grades in. So.
Hmm?
I don't think you need to send an email, because on Canvas, once you publish the grades, it just notifies you.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you didn't look at the grades, though, you can look at those and make sure you check them. And if you think I did something wrong, or if you think you deserve points for something, then let me know. Okay, so yeah, some of you forgot to do hold on and hold off on quiz 4, because we were plotting 2 curves at once. So if you're plotting 2 curves on the same graph, you have to use this function, or 2 or more curves on the same graph, you have to use this command, hold on and hold off. So basically we plot our first curve here, and we want to plot another one on the same graph, so we tell MATLAB hold on, and then we're going to plot our other one. So we're going to do t.day, and then t.us underscore mov, and this is our rolling average. And we're going to also say hold off. So, I think some of you have noticed that I can actually run this right now and we get our graph, but you should still type in hold off. Okay, so we have our 2 graphs here, so that's okay, but we have this blank space over here and we have this blank space over here. We don't want that. So we're actually going to modify our graph again to kind of constrain our axis limits here. Alright, let's put this up here. I know this is getting a bit cluttered of a workspace here, but I want to keep this graph here so we can see it kind of updating with time. Okay. Alright, so if I just changed our axis limits explicitly, or basically this would be hard coding here. if I changed it explicitly to say, let's say right here, I put it starting here. This is on January 21st. So if I used our our command xlim, and then I said, basically I could find like the day or the row for January 21st. So let's just pretend January 21st. This wouldn't work, of course. And then over here, what is it? April 1st, I think. Yeah. April. So if I did this, this would be basically hard coding. I wouldn't like that either. So we're going to have to change this. But there's also a point here that I want to make, that basically when we use Movmean, because it's calculating the average on that range that you have, like 3 days or 7 days or whatever it might be, it's actually changing the values here that we have. So let's change this to, I don't know, 2. So you'll see this kind of, I don't know, purplish dark red line here. If I change this to 2 days now, watch how it changes our graph. So now it has data all the way over here. If I zoom in, you can see it a bit better. So you see this red graph here, it starts here now on January 14th. So that just changed from having our first data point for Movmean on January 21st to January 14th. So depending on the rolling average that we use, it's actually changing our data here. In the project, it's actually a lot more simple. Basically, all you're going to have to do is just get the starting day for testing, and then for your access limits, and then the ending day for the testing. But for this example, it's a little weird. Basically, though, I'm just going to show you guys for this example how we can have our code to dynamically adjust the limits for our x-axis. So no matter what Movmean that we use, it's going to dynamically update the x limits on this graph. I'm going to go over this part a little fast just because, again, on the project, it's actually a lot simpler. Basically, to set your range for the x limit, all you have to do is select the starting date for the vaccines and then the end date for the vaccines. So basically the most recent day of vaccine distribution on your spreadsheet. Okay, so let's adjust this though. Okay, so I'm going to do xlim. Did I do stuff before? Yeah, I did. Okay, so I'm going to actually first go up here and I'll make a comment called starting dates or custom dates. And go here. So custom dates. But this will basically be the starting date that I want and then the end date that I want for my x limit. Okay, so for the starting date, I'm going to call this variable c_start for custom starting date. And then we're going to access the data that we just had. So that was t.usmov. Actually, no, it should be the date. So t.day. And then I'm going to use our function find, which we've been using a few times now. So find. And then we're going to say find when t.usmov is greater than or equal to 0. And we're going to get the first value. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Maybe I'll talk about this in more depth in a video later on, but I don't want to go over this part again too much because we're already at 3:05 and I want to go over the other workshops that are more related to your project. And then I'll do C start indices. Actually what I'll do is I'll save this for that video because, again, I want to go over more relevant stuff in class today. But if I was going to type out all of this code, let me open up I think I closed my little lecture slides. Okay, so if I was going to type out all of that code, it would then dynamically change our x limits on the fly depending on the rolling average that we used. So if I use like a 7-day rolling average, it would look like this. if I used a 3-day rolling average, then this starting date, it would actually change for when we first have data for this rolling average line. So this line that's in blue. So our code would basically be able to dynamically adjust for when that first data point is given in the graph. Okay, so I'll actually put that in again in a video that I'm going to make for you guys too, if you want to look at it. But I'll say one more time, on the project, it's actually a lot more simple than this example here. Basically, you're going to look at the first day for vaccine data that was given, and that's going to be your first argument for your X limit. And then the second argument for X limit, that's going to be the most recent day for vaccine data that you have. And that's all you're going to have to do. All right. Let's close out of that. Alright, so what we're going to do now is... Did I close out of that again? Okay, here we go. So now we're going to be making this graph right here. And so this, again, is going to cover a lot of the techniques that you need for the project. Okay, yep, that's open there. Let me make a new script here. So, we could have all of this in one script, but I'm going to have separate scripts for each graph that we're making here. So, but for your project, you should have only one script. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to finish the code now. I'll finish the code in a video, just because that part, it's not going to be as relevant for your project. So I'm just going on to the next script. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is import our data again, and then we're going to do some bookkeeping that I'll say again. So we're going to basically convert one column from a cell to a string. We'll talk about why. And let's see, yeah, then we're going to find our indices. I know there's a question on finding indices on Discord, so I couldn't answer that in time before class, but we'll talk about that actually right now too. Okay, so again, we're going to be making this graph here. So for the homework that I'll assign today, it's not going to be this graph, but basically I'll say, okay, here's a graph, and I'm going to give you the corresponding data that is associated with this graph. And basically I'm going to tell you, make the graph, and you're going to have to do it all on your own, and this will kind of help to simulate the project. Because, right now I'm basically telling you what you have to do step by step, which is good, but I think you learn more when you gotta think through stuff on yourself too. So I think that should help. Okay, so first thing is importing the data. I'm gonna go over that part fast. So this data, you guys should already have this actually. This is from before the break. It's called angels_2020. But for the homework, I'll give you different data for the homework. So this file should already be on Canvas. Yeah, this was there from March 22nd. Okay, so let's import this. So t = read table angels2020.csv. I'm going to go over that part quickly because we already know how to do that. So let's open this in the workspace. And this is what it looks like. So it's a really big table again. It's 9,000 rows and 89 columns. And let's pull this back up again. I know this is really cluttered, guys. Sorry. So we want to make this table. So we need all of these players here. And I don't want to explicitly type out which players that we want to look at because that would be hard coding and we don't want to do that. So we need to basically find a way to just kind of get all of those names in code. So I have a comment here and I'll say find players. And what we're going to do is get all of these names. Basically, we're going to pull them from our table here. Put that down there. This would be a great time to have dual monitors. I only have the one. I have my laptop, I guess, but because I don't want this to be on the screen. Okay, so to find the players, we don't need to look through our graph here manually. That would take way too long, right? Let me actually hide this for now. So if we look at this column 6, we see player name. We could scroll through this, but come on, that would take forever. We have 9,000 rows here. So to make sure that we have every player, that would take a long time. So we're going to use MATLAB to help us out here. So we're going to use a function that's called unique. I'm not sure if we went over this function before or not, but either way, we're going to go over that now. So let's make a variable called players. And to get all of these basically unique names in this column, we're going to use the unique function. So unique, and then we're going to say what we want to look at. So that's t.playerName. And now if I run this, and let's open this up, these are all of the unique players that we have. Cool, right? Also, right now, it's a cell. So it's a cell array, which is meaning that I can't access like all of these kind of name by name. So I can't access it like Joe Adele. It's structured a bit differently because it's a cell array. I don't think that matters quite yet, but it will at some point. Did I actually convert it here? Yeah, I did. So you see down here, I actually convert what we just had there into a string. So later on, we can use a logical operator. So later on, we're going to use the equal sign. And basically, if it's a cell, MATLAB can't handle that. So you have to convert it to a string. So we're going to get to that later on, though. And then I'll actually show you why we have to do that. Okay, so we have all of our players now. I'm actually going to go up here and we'll say convert player name to a string. I'll do this a bit later on though. Okay, so from our graph, let's open that up again. Our graph here, we have 8 players. We have Joe Adele, David Fletcher, and so on. But when we just used our unique function, we have 22 players here. So we got to get rid of some of these players that basically I don't care to look at. So let's do that. So we're going to basically use array addressing to do this. So let's say delete players, sorry, we don't care about. So we're going to access this cell array, which is called players. And then now we're going to remove the players that we don't care about. So I don't care about the players from 2 to 5. So basically all of these players here, I don't care about them. I want to get rid of them. So I'm going to put 2 to 5. Then I don't care about players 7 through 10. So I'm going to get rid of those. Then I don't care about players 14 to 18. Get rid of them. And then player 22. Don't care about him. Okay, so why did I use brackets? That might be a question some of you have. So this is a one-dimensional array. It's a column vector here. So if I didn't have the brackets, this is implying that I have basically like a 4-dimensional array. You know, this would be 1 dimension. This would be our rows. So this is saying rows 2 to 5. And then this is saying rows or columns 7 to 10. And this is saying the layer, remember for multi-dimensional arrays, they have different like layers. This is saying layers 14 to 18. And this last one is who the hell knows. That's some fourth dimension that doesn't exist for MATLAB. So I only want to look at the rows that I want to delete in this vector. So because of that, we're going to wrap all of these in brackets. And now this is just looking at rows 2 to 5, 7 to 10, 14 to 18, and 22. And then to delete them, we went over this before, but if you forget to delete some row or some column, we set it equal to these empty brackets right here. And now if I run this, you're going to see this is going to go from 22 players to just, I think, 8. And there we go. So now we have 8 players here. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so the next thing, we want to basically specify the kind of events. That's the name that we need to look at, or the column that we have to look at in here. So that's column, I think, 9. So basically, we want to see when each player had a single, a double, a triple, or a home run. So, you know what? We could do something similar that we just did for players. I could find all of the unique events, but there is a ton. So let's do unique events. Oops, I need to t.events. There's 20 of them. So I could delete them all again. But just for sake of time, I'm going to do what you shouldn't do, and that's basically hard coding. So I'm just actually going to make a string array myself that says a single, a double, a triple, and a home run. So I guess do as I say, not as I do right here, because this is technically hard coding, which what I'm going to do right now. I'm only doing this for time, though, for this lecture. Come on, that we want to look at. So, what did I call this, though? Event. So I'm going to call this string array event. And to make a string array, we have to use brackets. And then I'll say single, double, triple, and then home run. So if I open this up in the workspace, this is what it looks like. Let's make this a single. Alright, so this is a 1x4 string array. So if I was going to look in this column called events, we see, let's go to, oh, we just saw a triple. Okay, I went too far. Oh, triple. Okay, there's a triple, here's a double, here's a single, and then home run. In this column, it has an underscore, so like that. So that's why I typed all of them out like this. Alright, so next thing is kind of the more important stuff now. We're going to get all of the indices for all of the players that we want to look at. Okay, so this is a big part of your project right here, so really make sure that you're paying attention for this part. So we have 8 players that we're looking at for this graph that we want to make. So I need to find the indices for each of those players. So basically I need to find all of the rows that corresponds to each player. So one of them was Justin Upton, I think. He should be in there.
You're gonna use like find and then you put in the value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna use find once again. Yeah. So one of the players that we're gonna look at is Justin Upton. So basically, I want to write some code to get all of the rows when he shows up. So we know that he shows up in rows 3 to 7 here, but he's also gonna show up in a lot of different rows throughout this entire spreadsheet. So to do this manually would take forever, of course, so we're going to use code to do this for us. And this will be something that you have to do in the project for each county. You're going to want to find when each county shows up in your spreadsheet. Top 5 populous counties, that is. Cool. Okay, so I know this was kind of similar to a question that someone had in Discord, which is talking about hard coding. So basically what I would recommend you do, instead of typing out the counties yourself, which would be hard coding, you should basically, one of the spreadsheets that I gave you was the population data for counties, and it has the county name in that spreadsheet as well. You're going to want to sort that spreadsheet by population, and then you can use array addressing to pull those top 5 populous counties, what those names are. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, where I say names of 1, names of 2, so that'll be like the first player, the second player, and so on. So you never want to type out the county names in your project. You want to pull those names from somewhere. Okay, so we're going to say find indices for each player using our function called find. Okay, so we got kind of 2 things going on in these lines of code here, so we'll talk about them. First one though, we want to find all of the indices for the first player. So let's go down here, players of 1, that was Joe Adele. So I want to find all of the rows when Joe Adele shows up. So we know from just looking at this that he shows up first in rows 13 to 15. So again, I want to find those rows. I'm going to use the find function. And basically, I'm going to say find t.playerName. So we're looking at this column here, player name. I want to find when Joe Adele shows up there. So I'm going to say find when a row is equal to, so we use 2 equal signs. This is a logical operator. So we're going to find when t.playerName is equal to players of 1. Okay, so I'm saying players of 1, I'm not typing out his name, because again, I don't want to type it out. That would be hard coding and it would just take too long. Did I type something wrong here? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I'm actually kind of glad I forgot about that. So you see our error here says operator, 2 equal signs, it's not supported for operands of type cell. So, t.playerName here, this is a cell array. So if I type in class of t.playerName, it's going to say cell. So we need to convert this entire column, instead of being a cell array, we need to convert it to a string array. And then strings, we can use these logical operators with them. So let's go back up here, and we are going to convert this column from a cell array to a string array. So let's do t.playerName is equal to string. So this is our function that we're using, and this will basically make this entire column a string array. So we'll type in string t.playerName. I'm going to comment this out for now. And now if I type in class of t.playerName, now it's a string array. Cool. Okay, now let's run this again, and you see it just ran fine. So let's open this up now too. So open player. I'm going to call this player underscore ind for indices. Okay, and here we go. So I made a cell array. I'll touch on that in just a second. But if I open this up, now we have all of the indices for our first player that we had in this string array that was called players. So basically this means that we have all of the rows for Joe Adele. So let's just confirm this real quick. Oops, how did that go down? Okay, so we have 13 to 15. Let's see if that's correct. 13 to 15, Joe Adele. Next one, 99 to 100. Let's check that. Here's 99 to 100, it's Joe Adele. So we're confident that this is correct. So does that part make sense? Before I go on here, I wanna make sure everyone gets that part. Okay. I'm gonna assume that means yes, but if you don't get it, then make sure you let me know at some point. So we have all the indices for our first player. Now we want to find all of the indices for all of the other players. So we have 7 more players that we need to find their corresponding indices for. So you could just have one variable per player. So you could do that, but your workspace is really going to get cluttered. So personally, I would recommend having all of your indices for each player in one kind of central location. So for me, that's going to be in this cell array called player_ind. So, this first cell, that's going to be for our first player, and our second cell is going to be for the second player, and then so on. So I'm using a cell array because these different players, they're going to show up a different amount of times. So Joe Odell, he showed up 547 times, but our next player, player 2, David Fletcher, most likely he's going to show up in our table here a different amount of times. And remember that if we have a matrix or a table, all of the columns that we have, they have to be the same length. So in this case, that's very, very, very unlikely to happen. So we're going to use a cell array. So player 1, he might show up 547 times. Player 2, he's going to show up a different amount of times. Alright, so let's get all of the other people that we need in here. So I'm going to get all of these people. This is why I'm using this different method using my text editor here. So I want to have 8 rows here for all of our 8 players that we have. Okay, so that's 1 to 8, and then I also need to change this part over here to be 1 to 8. I'll explain this to you in a little more depth after I do this. Okay. Alright, so we have, we want to find the indices for 8 players, and that's what we have now. So basically we're using this same kind of logic, or for the same line of code 8 times. So on this first line, we're saying I want to make cell number 1 here, so that's right here. And I want to find when that player's name is equal to the first value that we had in player. So that was Joe Odell. And then second line, we're saying that I want to make this cell here, the second cell, and I want to find when this column in T, called player name, is equal to the second value in that string array that we made called players. So David Fletcher. Okay, and we keep doing that for all of our other players. So we have 8 cells here, and you see all of these cells, they have different lengths, right? So Joe Odell, he had 547 rows, David Fletcher had 906 rows, and so on. So if I didn't have this as a cell array, let's pretend that I wanted this to be a matrix here. So basically using regular parentheses. So if I did that, now we're going to get an error. It says that the size on the left-hand side is not compatible with the size on the right-hand side. So basically it's saying that because our rows in each column, they're different lengths, which that can't happen for matrices. So that's why we're using a cell array. Okay, does that part make sense with everyone? And this will be the same kind of thing. Most likely for your project too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but different counties, they probably started vaccinations at different days. So the amount of rows that you have for total vaccinations up to this point, they're going to be different county by county. Okay. If you're not clear in this part, make sure again that you reach out sometime, because this will be a really important part for your project. It's going to be, one of the first things that you do in the project, so you We really want to make sure that you understand that part. Oh, also, I want to touch on something. So, in the deliverables, I said that you can use whatever method you want to use. So, maybe we didn't talk about something in class and you think, or like, a different way to do something. You can use that different method, but there is one exception. You can't use for looping in this project. So I'm guessing the majority of you have never used a for loop, so you might not even know what I'm talking about. And that's the expectation, but I do know there are a few of you that actually do know what for loops are. So for this project, I said that you can't use them, because that's the main point of emphasis for the second project. So let's see. I know I said it in here, I just want to see where I said it. Oh yeah, right here. With the exception of for loops. So you can't use that in this project, but you can use whatever else. So why do I talk about that? We have 8 lines of code here, and we're doing the same kind of thing 8 times. That's a ton of work, right? It sucks. Imagine that we're doing this for our project. We have like, I don't know, like 50 counties or something. I forget, but we're not going to type out 50 lines of code to do things like this. So in that case, we'd want to use a for loop, which will save us a ton of time. So I'm kind of putting you through some minor hell here. Where we have to use 8 lines of code here to do the same kind of thing. And that's why for loops are going to help us out a lot later on. Okay. So next thing that we have to do, we have all of the indices for all of these players. The next thing is we want to find the amount of singles per player, the amount of doubles per player, triples per player, and home runs per player. So we're going to be using array addressing with these indices that we just found. So let's make a comment here, and we'll call this singles per player. So we have our indices for each player, and now we want to find when a row for that player is equal to single. So when it's equal to single, okay? And so we don't need to type out single. Remember, we made a string array up here that's called event, which has single, double, triple, and home run. So we're going to reference that. So let's do it for our first player first. So for this, let's first just do it for our first player. So I'll just call this hits for now. I'm going to change this later, but we're going to kind of go a little more step by step than what I have in my code over here. Alright, so let's do hits. So I want to find the amount of singles for our first player, which is Joe Adele. So I want to find when the rows for Joe Adele, or basically when the rows for Joe Adele in this column, column 9, are equal to single. So we're going to use our find command once again. So we're going to say find when t.events, so I want to look at this column here, column 9, and we're going to use array addressing now with those indices that we just found for this player. Let's first do this. So t.events player indices 1. Alright, make sure that you suppress all of these lines of code, because if I run this now, a ton of stuff comes up in the command window. So that would get really annoying. So make sure you suppress your code. Alright, so let's look at what this is first. So we're using array addressing with all of those indices that we just found for our first player, and we're using those indices, and we're applying them to this column 9 here. Let's pull this out over here. So let's just get a better idea of what this line of code so far is doing. Go to column 9. Okay, so the first thing that we have is for player 1, he first shows up in our table T on rows 13 to 15. We showed this before. So this is saying what we just calculated, or what we just had for our code, is basically that on lines 13 to 15 we have strikeout and then null and then null. So let's check if that's actually true. Let's go back to our table. So on 13 to 15, oh, I went over one too many. So on 13 we have a strikeout, 14 null, 15 null. That's exactly what we see here. Remember, we used array addressing to make this column vector called hits. So we used array addressing for those indices that we just found for this first player, and we've applied them to column 9, which is events. Alright, so that's, it's working just like we'd expect so far. But I want to find when this column 9 for events, is equal to single. Because we want to find the amount of singles that this person has. So to do that, we are going to set this equal to event of 1. Remember, we made this string array called event earlier on. So instead of typing out single, we can just say, look at the first value in this string array called event, which is equal to single. So if I run this right now, this should... Okay. Okay, so we have an error again because it's not a cell, but let's go back here. Actually, did I set to be over here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I had the parentheses wrong at first. So we're saying we're using array addressing here, so we're looking at t.events using our array addressing. So that is going to be like, well, we just saw a strikeout and null and null. And then we're going to compare that using a logical operator. We're going to compare that to our string array called events, or event, and we're going to see if they're the same. Let me write out a comment for this right now. Okay, so this is what this line of code is doing. It's looking at the, let's say for now, we'll look at those first 3 rows. So that was these rows here, actually here, 13 to 15. And we're seeing if that is equal to single. And because this is a logical operator, it's going to tell us whether it's true or whether it's false. So none of these are equal to single, right? And we have strikeout, null, and null. So that's going to be a value of false, which is a 0. That's these first 3 values here. They're all zeros. So we get a 0. And then the first one that we get when it's true is this 12th value here. And that would correspond to row 155 in our table. So let's go to row 155. Now this stuff is just kind of sanity checks to make sure that our code is working correctly. So 155, look at that, that's single. Let's make sure that it's Joe Adele. And it is Joe Adele. So, but we want to use our find command. Oh, I said change. Check if row and event. Geez, had a lot of mistakes there. So instead of seeing all these logical answers, we actually want to find the rows when this is true. So we're going to use our find command. So find. And now we get all of these rows. So this is a lot more easy to look at for us. Okay, so this is corresponding to 12. That means, so you need to be careful here. That's not the 12th row in our table. This is the 12th row for this cell array here, or just column vector here, for the indices for this first player. So that's a lot to keep in mind. So that's, we see here, this was true on row 12 for the indices that we just had, which corresponds to row 155 in our table. So that's a lot of stuff to kind of keep in mind. But what we actually want to find here is just the amount of times that this player had a single. So I don't really care about the row when it showed up in our table. I just want to find the amount of times when this happened. So to do that, we're going to use our length command. Okay, and then what this does is it basically just gets the length for all of this. So we should have a value on the end of 13. And that would mean that Jodel had 13 singles in the season of, in this case, of 2020. Let's run this now, and then look at that. This is now a value of 13. Okay, so I know this line is a lot to take in, again, because we're combining a lot of things at once. We're using the length function, the find function, we're using array addressing here, and then we're using a logical operator, and we're using array addressing over here too. That's a lot of stuff at once, so you really want to make sure that you take a look at this line of code and you are able to kind of dissect it and understand what's going on. We didn't cover as much as I wanted today, but I'm going to make a few videos where they're going to go in a lot of depth, and hopefully that's going to help out a lot. And we'll also go over on Wednesday too, hopefully finish this one up. But if we don't have, or if I'm feeling too shitty, basically, then I'll cancel class and I'll make a video for this too. Alright, so we're basically out of time. Didn't cover nearly as much as I wanted to, but it's kind of how it goes. So if there's any questions that I can answer in a reasonable amount of time, then stick around. But if there are longer questions, let me know what your question is, and then I'll answer it in like a video or something.
Oh, hey Patrick. Is it okay if I ask you a question when everyone leaves? Because I don't think people need to hear this. Or
Well,
they don't.
if you have a question, there's most likely someone else has the same exact question.
Oh no, it's about the vaccine.
Oh, okay. Alright, yeah, you can ask me after.
The reason why I said they don't have to listen to this, they could just leave.
Okay. Alright, anyone have any questions on what we did today though?
I have a question because for the hits, you know how you have in your workspace in that hits you have like a 13. Mine
Yeah.
is 0.
Okay, then there's probably some difference in our code at some point somewhere. So let me I'll do this for now, and then you can kind of see if there's any difference. Alright, and then Brandon, yeah, I can help you with importing data as well. Okay, and then Lissandro, you can ask that same question in Discord just because that'll take more of an explanation.
Professor?
Mm-hmm.
I also have a question on the first thing we did. It was the GME.
Okay.
When you plotted it, you put t.day and then comma t.us, and then you put hold on and then t.day t.us mov.
Mm-hmm.
I pressed F5 to run it, and it says there's no variable day. So,
Okay, was the capitalization the same?
Yeah, it's capitalized D.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to leave now because we're out of time, you can leave if you want, or you can stay. It doesn't matter, but I'll see you guys on Wednesday, maybe. Okay, let me go to my script. Question?
I have a question for the project.
Mm-hmm.
For the manufacturer names, those are just hard code, right? Since I don't think I saw the names of the manufacturers in the things.
Yeah, for that, it's okay. I think they technically, they're at column names somewhere, but they're not formatted that well, so you can just hard code that part.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for that last question, you can just make sure that all of this is the same, because it should show up, but it's probably like a really small detail for like capitalization or I don't know, something like that.
Let's see. Read up properties, names to US.
Thank you, Professor. I got my mistake.
Okay, cool.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Everything seems right. Or I put everything in right. Is it
Okay.
the...
If you still can't get it, send your script on Discord to me. Because I bet it's a really small thing, and the small things I can never find either for like some of my stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'll just send it.
Okay.
Professor, I also have questions. So when I put in a C start indice, it doesn't run. When I run it, it's like there's error.
For the last one we were working on?
The one that you just shown right now, the GMP one.
So which part?
Yes,
oh,
that one. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, here.
When I run it, it's an error.
Yeah, that's just because I didn't actually basically assign this to anything. So it's gonna look at that and be like, what the hell is C start IND? So I should have set this equal to something, but I forget what I did, so.
So just comment it out, right?
Yeah, for now, yeah. Yeah, I'll finish this video for this GME one, because there was still some stuff that I actually did in my script, but I didn't go over in class today, so I'll make a video kind of finishing that part.
Will there be more workshops upcoming?
Yeah, I'll do one on Wednesday as long as I feel okay.
Okay.
And then depending on how everyone feels, maybe we could have more, but I'm going to make a lot of videos too. And we have to start programming pretty soon.
Wait,
so
what workshop?
Mhm.
What workshop?
Just this kind of stuff.
Oh, you mean the one you're like, reviewing?
Yeah, I mean, just like what we did today. So on Wednesday, I'll continue doing stuff like this.
Oh, I see. The workshop. So, okay, so remind me. So just a reminder. Workshop is like the question we ask, and you will help us to refresh our memory, all that stuff.
Yeah, basically, I'll just go over like making a script with you guys, and then I'll ask if you have a question, and if you do, I'll kind of go over it. So just basically the same thing that we did today.
Okay, I see. All right. You said that people